Okay, Anthrich here. So we are still collecting materials in Reign of Dwarf, preparing to start building our workstations, which will allow us to get started on the upgrade of gear and progression through the different tiers of gear and the workstations. We are looking for stone and wood at this point. We'll need some metal as well. As you may recall from watching the previous videos, I've kind of hidden my base away a little bit in this mountain. That does lead to some instances of where I forget how to get up. It takes me a little while. So a little pro and con there. It's harder for me to get in, which means that if I'm being chased back to my base, that could result in my death. You can, of course, once you have the appropriate tool, modify the terrain and make it more, friendly in regards to that. In fact, you can build like a moat with a land bridge that you can block off with the doors as gates and make that a much more structured and safe situation, but not quite doing that yet with the wipe coming up. So I've got my workbench crafted, going to place that here in the base. One nice thing about Reign of Dwarf is that the crafting stations can be picked up and put in your inventory. As they don't have weight, you could put the entire base's stations in your inventory and relocate to another spot and just rebuild your base. Of course, you need the materials to build the base itself, but you do not have to rebuild, and most importantly, re-upgrade the crafting station. So that's a huge deal. Okay, so let's see. We're going to want to be producing the upgrade for the doors. The doors that I have in place currently were those crafted just in my inventory, and they are of an inferior quality. I'm going to craft some ones at the station. They'll be better and replace those. You are going to be producing a lot of the planks and cut stone for the boards, and those are done on the bench. It has this pretty novel, and I'm told temporary, mechanic of having to physically interact with the crafting station. Here you see I'm hitting the bench with the hammer. It's a much more active crafting system. Some games do this kind of active method with harvesting, but I don't recall ever seeing it being done with crafting, so that's kind of cool. In fact, there's a couple of other workstations which have even more elaborate interaction, like almost to the point of it being a mini game, and that's quite fun. In fact, I was really impressed by one of them, and it made the experience of crafting enjoyable, weirdly. Okay, so as you can see, the percentage goes up as you hit it, depending on how many of a thing that you're crafting. Pick up the stuff, put it in my inventory. You can only do a certain number at a time, so you might have to do different sets, but it's all very straightforward. The first bench that you need, of course, is this wood workbench, and then we're going to be shooting for the forge to be able to smelt the metal into the metal bars, which we'll need to make some of the items and some of the other workstations. Alright, so I have a new door. Can't actually just replace it like you can in some games, at least not to my knowledge. So open the door, pick it up, put it in my inventory. Now I probably should have removed the lock first. I did not do that, but it's not a huge resource cost. So as you can see, you can kind of orient where the hinge is. I'm going to have it open away from the wall and do the same thing for the other side. I'm only going to replace the doors on the inside and not the outer ones. This is a temporary base. It's just to demonstrate how it works, so I'm not too worried about security. If someone wanted to break in and they go through the doors, they might, evaluate how long it'll take or what kind of resources they'll need, looking at the quality of the outer door, and then the inner door being of a higher quality might mess them up a little bit, so we'll go with that. Alright, gonna need the 2 new code locks, put those on. Someone mentioned in the comments to a previous video about the code locks being kind of a waste of time or blurring it because code locking or code breaking rather is so easy, and that is true. It's very easy to brute force these things. The system in Reign of Dwarf is a simple four combination lock. Daisy, as you probably know, has a 3 or 4 combination, and Rust has a similar system, although Rust does something different to make it a bit more difficult. It's possible that this can change. The game is in early access, and this is precisely the kind of thing that changes in the development of a game. If players, are seen to be able to get in through this too easily, and if someone comes up with a solution or an alternative, then that might be changed. This is an important note for new players. Not everybody realizes that the influence chest can be locked. The way the influence chest works is that if you were to break inside a base, if you penetrate the exterior walls and have access to the chest, you can actually add yourself to the permissions list simply by interacting with it. And if the base owner doesn't realize that, doesn't check the list and remove you, and comes back and closes the breach in the base, you now have access to it, to the to the base. So that's a problem. So put a lock on it. So if somebody breaks in, they'll have to spend time breaking that code as well to get into the inventory chest to take the resources and so on. Okay, furniture is cool, but not going to waste time and resources on that. What I really need is a ranged weapon. At the moment, the only ranged weapon that I can make is the bow or the sling. The bow requires resources in terms of rope, which I cannot currently make, so I'm just going to stick to the sling. The damage is not as good. The aiming is a bit difficult, but at least at the minimum I can pull a mob if I can't kill it, and then I can just melee it once it gets in range. So we're gonna have to make some ammunition and then make the weapon. The other options, of course, are armor. Normally I would make armor, but it requires a lot of planks, and I'm just not going to do it at this point. It's too much work for the mitigation that provides. Now, as you've probably seen, when I first started and spawned in, there was some armor in the starting area, which I'm currently wearing, which is of better quality than the stuff that I craft. That's the case throughout the early game. There are chests that you can find in the various points of interest, the Goblin Fort, the Goblin Tower, and the boss dungeon. And you'll find better quality gear than the stuff you can craft when you're first starting. And some of those camps can be soloed pretty easily, and it's a good way to bootstrap your quality of gear up pretty quickly. You craft some basic stuff here at your base, enough to deal with the mobs, and then you can go ahead and get better stuff. Some of that will actually allow you to research it, and then you can craft it yourself. Because of course acquiring an item via loot is great, but you can't repair it without it being something that's repairable via these stations, and then you'll just end up having to continually repair it if you can repair it, or if you can't, then you'll just lose it. You really want to be able to craft these things yourself. Okay, so I'm going to need some resources in order to do what I need to do here. As you saw, I went through the different crafting stations to get a look at what resources I need in order to craft what things. Some of this is easily acquired, and some of it not so much. Again, given that there's a wipe coming up, I'm not going to go all the way through the process of upgrading all of these benches, but after the wipe I will put a video up showing what you need for each of these things. You can see here, for example, the tailor workbench requires a gear. Gears can be looted in the world or be crafted via the engineering bench, but the engineering bench has resource requirements as well to build, so you can't just get the gears directly. You need to be able to make that bench. Alright, so we're gonna dump our inventory here and perhaps go out and see if we can loot some items that we can use to deal with these mobs a little better, since we don't really have anything in the way of gear at the moment. I do have the axe, which I looted with the armor when I started, and a shield that I crafted, but don't really have any decent weapons at this point. So as you've seen, there is a day-night cycle. The nighttime is not as dark as it used to be. Another comment that I saw in one of the videos was how the game was dark. Man, I wish you'd seen it before. It was crazy. This is nothing now. It used to be a legitimate factor in that you could not necessarily go out at night. You'd have to stay in your base and do some crafting or something, or harvesting around your base, or alternatively, have a torch which paints a target on you, because you can be seen from really, really far away. But fortunately, that's been changed. Let's just take a crack at these guys. I know that they're going to be too fast, but yeah, I'm not going to be able to catch. All right, so I do need ranged weapons or to find deer. One or the other will do. Again, this game really is very similar to Rust, very similar to most survival games. They're all kind of in the same ballpark. Different themes, of course. The dwarf theme brings a lot to the table in terms of like the humor of it, and also just the things that you can do with the story, in the sense of what kind of weapons do dwarves use, what types of things do they do. The digging underground is kind of mandatory if you're gonna be a dwarf, so it's really cool that they've added that. The fact that you can build without restriction, generally speaking, in terms of like the size of structures. There's some stability concerns for verticality, but otherwise you can build a pretty large base if you have the resources to pay the maintenance. And you could build a giant, like, Lord of the Rings level base underground for dwarves, something which I hope to see someone else do, or if necessary I'll do it myself. Recently I did some testing on building designs and kind of built a castle above ground. It's also cool in that because you can have different materials for the walls and whatnot, the straw, the wood, the stone, the metal, and the mithril. You can use that to give it a different texture, just for visual purposes, for cosmetic reasons, and not so much in terms of the different protection levels. So that's kind of a fun thing as well to do. I generally stop at stone in the early game and then work on upgrading. Oh, wait a minute, that's a bear. So that's a source of leather, but it would probably be a difficult fight given the fact that I have a pretty lame weapon and no armor. So it's good to know that it's nearby. I could repeatedly farm that if I needed to, if I have no luck getting deer or animal fat via other means. But for now, we're just gonna ignore that. So here's one of the POI, the tower as it's called. It has some mobs on the outside and it has some on the inside. There's a spiral staircase that goes around up to a top floor, mobs all the way, and there's a chest at the top. And this, I believe, is where the Hellgate style portals are going to be located. You open them from the top of the tower, so you'd have to fight your way up there. Okay, so I'm getting shot at here by the goblin archer. The aggro range isn't too terrible. It's pretty easy to de-aggro these mobs. They do chase. The ones on the ground floor do chase, but not too far. So it's not the case of like in some games, especially some MMOs, where you'll be chased across the map. All right, let's see if the entrance is on this side. That means that the tower entrance will be here. There we go. Wow. So I took 30. That's like almost a third of my health. Of course, I'm not wearing armor, right? So keep that into consideration. But it's a decent amount of damage. Range is pretty powerful. You'll notice that early game, when it comes to PvP, it pretty much involves just people running around with crossbows. That's a really effective early PvP method. And the TTK, like you saw there, you figure 3 shots and you're dead. That's pretty quick. All right, so mushrooms, they will give me some healing. They're on a timer, so I can't just continually eat them. Get shot at again. Let's see, I'm looking for chests. I don't recall if there's chests on the outside or not. Doesn't seem like there are. Wow, I'm taking fire from 3 different archers. This is a bad idea. Alright. The risk is too high and the reward is too low. I'm not going to bother at this point. I'll need to at least craft some wooden armor to mitigate that damage a bit before taking a serious crack at this. There are, there's potentially good loot inside the tower, and if I were super careful about this, I could do it. But again, it takes a lot of time, and I have other things I need to be doing. I definitely need to find a source of animal fat, because without it, I will not be able to smelt ore, which means no metal, which is a problem. All right. You gonna take one more shot at me? No, okay. So I also saw some comments about the graphics. I've mentioned this before. I kind of like them. They're simplistic, but they look good to me. And in a game like this, which is really PvP focused, that's all you really want. I don't need my performance to be impacted by having overly engineered graphics. This is enough. I don't play Minecraft, but I did play a lot of Worm Online, and once you reach a certain, basic threshold, I focus, generally speaking, on the gameplay. It's not to say I don't enjoy games with good graphics or things that look beautiful, but it's not a requirement for me. Okay, just get a little bit more of the resources here. I can see that looks like it's gonna be the end of day soon. Don't want to be outside, even though it's not as dark. I don't want to be outside. Well, potentially a player could come along and kill me while I'm harvesting important stuff. You can hear people from a decent distance away. It's something that you have to be super aware of in a game like this, where it's first person. Someone could sneak up on you. So you want to listen to sounds of other people harvesting, sounds of walking around, the sheathing or unsheathing of weapons, the footsteps, of course. You noticed in a couple videos ago where I encountered the guy who just walked by, and I heard him before I saw him. And that's a good thing to keep in mind. Always pay attention. All right. So, as mentioned in a previous video, the update was expected to be on the 21st, Thursday, which was today, actually, and that has been delayed. So far, the delay is just one day, so it's expected now for the 22nd, which is Friday. I'm going to post probably some details regarding that in the next video, but just in general, personally, I think it's not a problem. A delay like that is completely reasonable, and in fact, it might be for the better, since it'll mean the update in wipe happens on Friday. More chance of people being off, before the weekend, and being able to start kind of at the same time, fresh with everybody else following the wipe. So I have no problem with that. I thought I saw somebody. Can't be sure. Dwarves are kind of short, and they're almost the same size and shape as these stone and ore nodes. I've actually hidden from people just by crouching behind them sometimes. If you don't move, you can usually get away with it, which is pretty cool. No stealth, but when you're a dwarf, just crouching in a bush can be stealth enough. Another thing I haven't mentioned, but is I actually like this music. The song that you hear when you first start, it gets stuck in my head sometimes. I'll be walking around and it'll just randomly come into my head. Oh yeah, okay, sun's definitely going down. And you can see from the pop-up in the lower right that I'm near my base with the taxation percentage notice. Now I just gotta remember, how the heck do I get in here? Oh yeah, it's around the side. I see the tower on the left, and then I look for this little slope. There's a little crouch jump. There we go. So thanks for watching. Next one, we're going to show an actual mob camp, I hope you are playing the game and enjoying it. See you in the next one.